Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Wall. We have a great episode for you today, as always, of course. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the big breaking news from today about Ghislane Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's madam and sexual procurer, getting into some trouble. In fact, she got arrested, believe it or not. Yeah, so we're going to be giving you all the latest details on that. Also taking a little bit about the veepstakes and Kamala Harris, what she's been up to. And we will also give you a little bit of a deep dive into this Russia story, Trump-Russia bounty story with the troops in Afghanistan and the Taliban. So a bunch of interesting characters on that. We'll save that one for last. It's a bit of a deep dive. Of course, these are all going to be coming from YouTube. Stuff I've done for that over the last couple of days. If you want to get this content a little bit earlier than the podcast, well, pretty simple. You can subscribe to my YouTube. I'm going to be putting out content there just around every day. Today we did 2. So go head on to search up my name, Spencer Walsh, with an S on YouTube. And, of course, I tweet out the link there, too. So if you ever want to follow the new stuff going on, follow me as well at SPW272. So let's get into it, starting with the arrest of Ghislane Maxwell. In what is a piece of just absolutely massive news, frankly, Ghislane Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's associate, fixer, madam, and at one point alleged lover, has been arrested this morning in New Hampshire. A lot of interesting stuff here in this story. So I'm just going to give you pretty much everything you need to know at this point. So let's go to this here in the New York Times. Just get that up there for you in just a minute. Wait 1 minute. There we go. All right, so here we have Jeffrey Epstein, associate Ghislane Maxwell, arrested, and it is Ghislane. The way I understand, that is how you say it. It is not Ghislane. No, but yeah, so the former girlfriend and longtime associate of the disgraced financier has been arrested. So in an indictment, Maxwell was accused of helping Epstein recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse multiple girls, including one as young as 14. So yeah, it's all kind of stuff that we relatively know. We know very well the crimes that Ghislane has committed. If you follow the story at all, she was pretty much Epstein's right-hand lady, and probably the person alive who knows the most about his whole operation that was happening really as early as like the early 90s, like 1994, all the way up to really the moment he was arrested, and then soon died under, shall we say, mysterious circumstances. So the arrest came, again, nearly a year to the day. He was arrested. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on the 6th of July, 2019, after Epstein was in charge himself in a federal indictment with sexually exploiting and abusing dozens of underage girls at his mansion in Manhattan, his estate in Palm Beach, and other locations. Epstein hanged himself in August, and I'm putting scare quotes there for a big reason, in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan, where he'd been jailed pending trial on the federal sex trafficking charges. So this is the acting U.S. Attorney for SDNY, Audrey Strauss, says, this case against Ghislane Maxwell is the prequel to the earlier case we brought against Jeffrey Epstein. Wouldn't it be the sequel? I don't know. William Sweeney, head of the FBI office in New York, said that she was arrested in Bradford, New Hampshire. The authorities had been discreetly keeping tabs on Maxwell's whereabouts and recently learned that she had moved to a gorgeous mansion in the state. He said Maxwell and a longtime confidant and companion had been accused of helping to procure and groom young girls for the financier. By the way, there is literally no more evil term in the world than financier. If you're referred to as a financier, I'm sorry, there is a 99.9% chance you are a deeply evil person. Jeffrey Epstein's house manager said, Janusz Banaziak says in a deposition, quote, they were like partners in a business. The daughter of the British publishing magnate Robert Maxwell, Mrs. Maxwell also helped manage Epstein's properties and introduced him to the celebrities and business executives who would form his social circle. So pretty much she served as being an already famous person, helped him set up his kind of whole pedophile ring. In an unusual move, the prosecutors had announced publicly the prince, okay, this is an important part here. As part of the investigation into Epstein's associates, federal authorities had sought the cooperation of Prince Andrew of Britain, a longtime friend of both Mr. Maxwell and Miss Epstein. Miss Maxwell and Mr. Epstein. In an unusual move, prosecutors had announced publicly that the prince had refused to help with their investigation. Last month, the prince's lawyer said he agreed to provide New York prosecutors with a written statement, but would not sit for an interview. On Thursday, Strauss said that federal prosecutors would still like to speak with Prince Andrew. The investigation's ongoing, and officials urged others who might have been victims to contact the authorities. And of course, flashback to that very memorable interview from last year where he spoke to BBC and said, if I recall correctly, that he couldn't. There was something about like the Falklands. The whole idea was, since he was been literally pictured with the main accuser in the Epstein case, Virginia Giuffre, and she accused that he had sex with her underage. Prince Andrew did. He said, "Well, I don't recall meeting her, and we of course never had sex." And the whole part of it was, Giuffre said, "I just remember he was very, very sweaty." But the line from Andrew on that was very, very funny, and he said, I got a condition because I was unable to sweat. I don't know. It's just really kind of a mess here. We have see if I have a video here, some of the clips. I was unable to sweat because of a condition that I had while I was fighting in the Falklands War. That was his big excuse. I had a condition where I was unable to sweat in the Falklands War. And guess what? I don't have it anymore. Like, if you didn't sweat, you would literally die. Like, your body is your body is literally required to sweat. Like, if you don't sweat, you die because your body needs to regulate the temperature. Like, that's not how it works.
For the first time, Prince Andrew speaks out.
I don't know why I've collected that title, because I never have really partied, and I've never really felt the need to go and party.
There's some pretty disgusting pictures of him out online.
For Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislane Maxwell at Sandringham.
No, it was a shooting weekend.
A shooting weekend.
Just a straightforward shooting weekend.
Why? Why were you staying with a convicted sex offender?
Right, because this was serious, and I felt that doing it over the telephone was the chicken's way of doing it.
This is his explanation of why he went. This is his explanation of why he went to New York after he already knew that Epstein was a sex offender, after he'd already been in jail for that kind of quote joke period where he was like pretty much allowed work release 7 days a week. Prince Andrew went up to New York to visit him, and he said it was going to end the friendship. And he said over the phone, that was a chicken's way to do it.
I had to go and see him and talk to him. Oh, in 2010, there certainly wasn't a party to celebrate his release in December, because it was a small dinner party. There were only 8 or 10 of us, I think, at the dinner.
You were staying at the house.
Yes, massive amounts of people.
It was a convenient place to stay, and I admit fully that my judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable.
Okay.
I was too honourable. I was too honourable. That's his excuse for going to Jeffrey Epstein's house. Guys, I don't know. I know I shouldn't have gone over there, but I'm just too honourable. I'm sorry, guys. I'm too honourable. Yeah, I highly recommend you go further into that video. We don't have all the time in the world for that today, but it's really quite something. Yeah, so the FBI official here, by the name of Mr. Sweeney, says the example set by the women involved in this investigation has been a powerful one. They persevered against the rich and connected, and they did so without a badge, gun, or subpoena, and they stood together. Civil lawsuits have accused Maxwell, now 58, of managing a network of recruiters on whom Epstein relied to entice young and often financially strapped girls and women into his scheme, promising he would help them with their education and careers. She orchestrated the whole thing for Jeffrey, said one of Epstein's accusers, Sarah Ransom, who sued him in 2017, said the New York Times in an interview. He told the New York Times in an interview, the federal indictment charges Maxwell with 6 counts, including enticing minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts and transportation of a minor with intent to engage in sexual activity and perjury. The indictment also described 3 instances between 1994 and 1997 of Maxwell befriending girls, taking them shopping and to the movies. After establishing a rapport with the girls, Maxwell would normalize sexual abuse by undressing in front of them or talking about sexual topics, the indictment said. So it's just pretty much that indictment reads like really a manual of how to groom and abuse very, very young girls. And Maxwell, if she was a pro, like she was a pro. She was one of the best that she did, and she used it just for just awful, evil purposes. So Epstein offered to pay for travel, educational opportunities for some of the girls. Maxwell encouraged them to accept his assistance, according to the indictment. As a result, the victims were made to feel indebted and believed Maxwell and Epstein were trying to help them. Epstein would then abuse girls in various residences and other locations in New York, New Mexico, Florida, and London, according to the indictments. And Maxwell would sometimes also be present. So, yeah, as you can tell here, very, very deeply involved in pretty much everything Jeffrey Epstein did. And guys, let's keep a very close eye on her this time, shall we? Because we don't want her to, again, in scare quotes, kill herself. That's all I got for you today. If you like the video, please subscribe. All right, that's what we got for you in terms of everything Jeffrey Epstein. Just want to take a moment to let you all know we do have a new episode of That's Interesting coming out. It is about Veep. So if you're listening to this anytime after Friday midnight, Friday 12 o'clock midnight, please go check that out. That's Interesting. Veep recap, breakdown, final episode. I watched it very recently, and it's really quite something. So please come enjoy. Anyway, Kamala Harris was on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and this is all, of course, as she attempts to prove herself worthy to be the second in command behind Joe Biden in his campaign. I think she will. Here's my thoughts on that, and kind of give you a little bit of analysis of what's going on. I do try to be fair to politicians, especially politicians that I don't entirely like. But to be honest with you, this was a little hard. So Kamala Harris, as I like to call her, Democratic senator from California, if you didn't know, she ran for president, obviously, in 2020 in the race. Didn't really make it. Just pretty much an epic fail of a presidency. Probably the most campaign, but she didn't even make it to the primary. She would have gotten blown out in her home state. Would have been very, very embarrassing for her career. But instead, she kind of saved face, dropped out early, and now is most likely going to be Joe Biden's vice president nomination. So she was on Stephen Colbert to talk about this, and it probably produced one of the most cringy, just talking about this, I'm getting a sense of foreboding because I've seen this now several times. I hate watching it. This was June 18th, 2020. This was several weeks ago. To be frank, this was one. This is 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But that doesn't even matter, but whatever. Yeah, so she was on Stephen Colbert 2 weeks ago. She was asked about the vice presidential pick, and of course, one of the biggest moments in her campaign was the fact that she rightly called out Joe Biden's awful record on segregation, the fact that he was pretty much pro-busing for most of his career and had a record on civil rights that would probably be considered right-wing in the Republican Party, let alone the Democratic Party, all through the 70s and the 80s with the war on drugs stuff, the crime bill. That is some incredibly, very, just stuff that doesn't pretend for doesn't portend well for black people, doesn't portend well for civil rights, doesn't portend for a kind of equal opportunity justice, you know?